Why do you have peripheral artery disease, that poor circulation in their legs, that causes plaque buildup? Why do you have cardiovascular disease, the plaque buildup in your heart? Well, it's because your arteries are on fire. And coming up in this first module of our Food for Thought series, we're going to be talking about the 10 causes of artery damage and how to put out that fire. With us is Dr. Michael Dansinger, our Chief Medical Officer for the Global PAD Association. Dr. Dansinger, why do people have artery fires?
That is the question, Kim. I'm very excited to give this brief presentation about some of the most common causes of artery disease. Think of your arteries as being on fire, and let's look at all the different things that can contribute to that fire, that fuel that fire, and how we can put them out. So I'm going to focus on 10 big ones. That's not the only things that contribute, but these are the big ones. And I've spent a lot of time and effort in my career thinking about the fire in the arteries and how to put it out. I am a physician trained originally in primary care and have really focused my career on nutrition and reversal of atherosclerosis and related conditions, especially diabetes and obesity. I was a medical director at a heart health company focused on blood testing for over a decade. I've worked with academic hospitals. I was at Tufts Medical Center in Boston for over 20 years, where I led a diabetes reversal program. I've done research in nutrition, including comparing popular diets. I worked for the Biggest Loser show as their nutrition doctor for over 10 years. And I'm with US News and World Report as part of their best diets judging committee.
Okay, the good news and the bad news.
Let's start with the bad news. So we know that most people with peripheral artery disease and cardiovascular disease have ongoing daily progressive damage to their arteries. And I call this arteries on fire. And you can't feel the burning, but if you could, it would grab your attention like a sunburn from the inside. But the good news is you can put out the fire. And understanding and eliminating the cause of the ongoing arterial damage is the key to putting that fire out. And if you can do that, your arteries can heal.
I love the way you phrase that it's a sunburn on the inside of you caused by something. Now, here are the 10 potential causes that you're going to discuss of artery damage. It could be something else that's not on here, but these are the most common.
Yeah, so in the next 10 minutes or so, we'll spend a minute talking about tobacco and toxins, junk food, high blood pressure, dyslipidemia, high blood sugar, obesity, underactivity, stress, gut microbes, and genetics.
Okay, so tobacco and toxins. And we're also talking about vaping. We're also talking about um what is it? It's pot. I was trying to think of the other term people say that I shouldn't be calling marijuana. There we go. That's the other word for it. But no matter what you burn, if you're breathing in anything that you burn, it is toxic to your arteries, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, let's look at the next screen where we get into it a little bit. Yeah, so as you said, it's not just cigarettes. Anything you're burning and breathing into you is damaging to your body, especially your lungs and to your arteries. So, cigarette smoke, though, is the single worst thing that people have done in the last 100 years to their health and their arteries. And secondhand smoke damages arteries too. Alcohol, recreational drugs, and chemicals in processed food just add insult to injury. Even air pollution has a harmful effect on your arteries. And although most people don't smoke or even get that much secondhand smoke, if you do smoke, quitting or getting help quitting is the single best thing you can do to improve your health?
Junk food.
Yeah, number two is junk food. We spend a lot of time, Kim, thinking about dealing with junk food and helping people figure
Yeah.
out how to deal with it. So, all these highly processed foods didn't exist 100 years ago. Your body just isn't built for them. And these foods are engineered by experts, by companies, by food scientists that have been hired to make you crave them and love them and keep eating them. And these foods damage the arteries and fuel the fire directly. And every junk food choice crowds out a chance to eat something that heals. And this junk food is not, it's not just a handful of things. It's a whole spectrum of food. And so you could call it very, very junky, moderately junky, slightly junky. All those foods contribute in their own way. And
It
so
was,
try swapping a processed snack for a whole natural food. Kim.
yeah, shop the perimeter of the supermarket, right? Can't really go wrong in doing that. But Dr. Mark Hyman released a slideshow of his top 10 foods that when we were younger, when you and I were younger, were actually okay. But now over the years, as these companies have tried to save a penny, they've added fillers, carcinogenic fillers, all kinds of stuff to our foods, natural flavoring versus the real thing, everything from Wonder Bread to even Reese's peanut butter cups used to have very simple ingredients, but now have so many things that make them ultra processed and not so good for you.
For most people, this is the number one culprit and the number one opportunity to reverse disease, including artery disease.
High blood
High
pressure.
blood
This is common.
pressure. Yeah, very common, especially as we grow older. So healthy blood pressure is around 120 over 70. Many people already know this. Even 130 over 80 isn't so bad. But anything higher really fuels the fire in your arteries. So healthy arteries are relaxed and flexible. Unhealthy ones are tense and stiff. And a lot of this high blood pressure is driven mainly by food choices and exercise and body weight and emotional stress. These are things that are in our control to a large extent. And so when we're able to make progress with these drivers of high blood pressure, there's nothing you can do about your age, but there's a lot you can do about your lifestyle. And so everyone has the opportunity to um, do something about their blood pressure.
Yeah, too much salt, too much of the wrong salt. You can actually improve it. I've heard there are clinical studies for beetroot powder can actually help nitric oxide. So, it's worth checking into. I hear a lot, Dr. Dansinger, someone who says, I just have white coat syndrome, and I just feel like my blood pressure goes up when I'm at the doctor. But a cardiologist told me that that is no longer thought to be a thing. The white coat syndrome is actually an indication of how you react to stress. And so it could be happening a lot actually at home. And so if it is high, no matter whether you think it's just an isolated incident because of the white coat or not, you really should go home and do a regular check of your blood pressure at various times throughout the day just to make sure that it's not something that is chronic, right?
Absolutely. You make an exceptional point, Kim. Yes. Many of my patients have home blood pressure monitors that um, work pretty well around the arm, and they keep track of their blood pressure. And that's really the best way to know what your blood pressure is like on a day-to-day basis. I agree.
Dyslipidemia.
Dyslipidemia, number four. So, dyslipidemia is talking about unbalanced blood fats and high cholesterol, too little of the good cholesterol, high triglycerides are all examples of dyslipidemia. And certain lipids and lipid particles damage the arteries and fuel the fire directly. And this requires working aggressively with your healthcare team to manage. The right eating, exercise, medication, and supplement plan all matter.
High
So
blood
of
sugar,
course,
this is
oh, if you can
common.
just let's just go back. Um, one more comment I'd like to add, if you're able to go back, is um, everyone's had their cholesterol checked,
Yeah.
and a cholesterol panel is very helpful. In many cases, it's also helpful to dig a little deeper. And there's sort of a basic panel, but also there's more sophisticated measuring of cholesterol particles in the blood. There's a lot out there that's available. And I'm saying this in part because I worked at a company for over 10 years that does this specialized lipid testing. And sometimes that type of testing uncovers or sheds light on blood abnormalities. And so just be aware that there's a lot to um, dyslipidemia,
Yeah.
and ideally you want to get all of your lipids as optimal as possible.
And we just talked to Dr. Lily Johnson, a vascular surgeon and specialist in metabolic health. She has a YouTube channel that people should check out, youtube.com/, the @ Lily Johnson MD, because she goes into detail about metabolic health and she goes into detail about the particles. She always talks about your particle number. And that was something that was really important for my dad. When my dad went into the urgent care unit, complaining of heartburn and whatever, it turns out that he did have a blockage in his heart, a significant narrowing in his heart. But the doctor, the primary care doctor on call, was saying, no, I have no reason to check for a heart attack because look, his cholesterol panel is normal. It wasn't until we did an advanced lipid panel through Boston Heart Diagnostics, which is the company you were the medical director for, that we discovered that, he had a low number of large, fluffy LDL particles, which weren't getting into trouble, but he had a very high number of small, dense LDL particles, which they explained that when become oxygenated by trans fats and ultra what else they can get, you know, infiltrated by, they end up wreaking havoc on your arteries. They can eke into the walls and things like that and push the walls out. You can express it better than I can. I'm not a doctor, but am I on the right path?
Absolutely. It's the small, dense LDL particles that are the real drivers of this artery damage from dyslipidemia. And sometimes you can't see the full picture with just a regular lipid panel.
High
High
blood
blood
sugar,
sugar.
even pre-diabetes, even one additional sugar molecule can wreak havoc on your arteries.
Yeah, so number 5 in our presentation is high blood sugar. And I think people generally know that high blood sugar is bad for your arteries and for your heart. And for people who have diabetes, the leading killer is not the diabetes itself, but usually the cardiovascular disease that's
Yeah.
fueled by the high blood sugar. And if you have diabetes, controlling your blood sugar is the best thing you can do to protect your heart and other organs. That's because high blood sugar acts like a toxin to your arteries. It damages the proteins in the artery lining and slows the healing. We like to imagine sugar crystals scraping up the inside of the arteries. And um, so when diabetes is poorly controlled, that really fuels the atherosclerosis and the peripheral vascular disease and the risk of strokes and heart attacks. And yes, pre-diabetes counts too. It's a milder form of the same problem. And so turning it around when you have pre-diabetes is even better than turning it around when it's full-blown diabetes. So there's a big epidemic of hidden prediabetes. Most people over age 65 have prediabetes and don't know it. So the way to find out is a simple blood sugar test.
And it's interesting because in the UK, Prediabetes is diabetes, and there is no pre-diabetes. Either your blood sugar is above normal or it's not. There's no gray area as we have in the US. So just know that and act on it. Do something about it. Don't take it lightly, as my dad did for many, many years, because his doctor said, "Oh, it's just pre-diabetes, no big deal." He never did anything about it. He just continued to eat the way he ate, and ultimately many years later ended up with severe blockages in his heart. So worth getting a handle on sooner versus later. Obesity, definitely, this is one of the biggest issues that we're facing, and this is why we hear so much about GLP-1s these days.
Absolutely. Obesity, that's excess body fat, especially when it's around the abdomen, fuels the fire. So this can lead to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease or metabolic liver disease, even in people who don't look overweight. This drives dyslipidemia, high blood pressure, and prediabetes, also known as metabolic syndrome. Reducing daily calories and increasing activity are the long-term keys.
مؤسسة أجناد للإنتاج الإعلامي تقدم صليل الصوارم نشيد.
Dansinger, not sure how that one came in.
So where are
We
we
will
in the
edit this later.
presentation?
So we're in obesity. That was very entertaining. So for those watching at home, go ahead, Dr. Dansinger.
Obesity, excess body fat, especially around the abdomen, fuels the fire. And this can lead to damage in the liver. So previously known as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Now it's metabolic liver disease. And this is even in people who don't look overweight. So you can be hiding fat in your abdomen without an obvious appearance to that. This drives dyslipidemia and high blood pressure and prediabetes, also known as metabolic syndrome, and reducing daily calories and increasing activity are the long-term keys to that.
Okay. Underactivity. This is what they say is actually the new smoking, which is underactivity, the sedentary lifestyle.
Absolutely. Your muscles, heart, and arteries need daily movement to stay healthy. So exercise stimulates blood vessels and blood flow in multiple positive ways. So aim for a combination of cardiovascular exercise, resistance training, and flexibility or balance exercise. These are all complementary. Gradually increasing your daily walking already makes a difference.
Stress. This is kind of what I consider a little bit of the silent killer, because you can feel the stress, but you don't see the damage that it causes.
Yes, absolutely. So we all feel stress throughout moments of the day. Plus, we feel stress on a chronic, long-term, low-level stress on a daily basis too. And so these affect stress hormones, which tighten the muscle layer inside your artery wall. And this makes the arteries stiffer and less flexible, raises the blood pressure. Cortisol is the main stress hormone that we're talking about, but there's others too. And this all spiked by deadlines and traffic and negative people and bad news. And you can think of a dozen other causes of stress on a daily basis. But you can help protect yourself against the damage caused by these stress spikes by using positive attitude, which measurably helps minimize the damage. There have been research studies that really point to the difference between positive attitude and negative attitude on artery health.
Okay. Oh, the gut biome. I just met an amazing gastroenterologist that is literally thinking, he's like, we need to get the word out about the microbiome, because he believes it is a huge source of havoc being wreaked on the arteries and issues caused by the gut.
Yeah, it's almost certainly a contributing factor. And, your gut bacteria eat what you feed them. They especially like plants and fiber. So, a wide variety of plant foods means healthier, happier gut bacteria. The more colors of fruits and vegetables you're eating, I think the more diverse and healthy your gut bacteria are going to be. And the reverse is true. Junk food and other unhealthy foods fuel the bad, unhealthy bacteria in an unhealthy cycle. And this is so important. And what we've learned in the past decade or so is that these intestinal bacteria produce byproducts that get absorbed into the blood and damage the arteries and other organs too. And so the more we learn about this, the more insights we gain into why unhealthy eating damages the arteries, and this is definitely part of the puzzle.
And I always tell people to think about, because people don't see the connection between their gut and their arteries, and we always joke, you are what you eat. But think about it, when you swallow a pill, it goes through your gut and it has to get into your bloodstream, right?
Yes,
So think about it like that. And once you do, you go, oh, okay, I see how what I eat ends up wreaking havoc on my arteries.
absolutely. 20 years ago, we had no clue about any of that. Now we know a lot more.
Yep. Okay, genetics.
Yeah, so some people inherit a higher genetic risk of cardiovascular disease than others. But most of the artery risk still comes from things you can control, not your genes. So in most cases, there are thousands of, I'll call them little genes that contribute just slightly to cardiovascular risk. And it's just, I'll call it bad luck. Some people have more of these little contributing genes than others. They have some called, polygenic risk score that can let you sort of see your cumulative genetic risk. I'm not sure
Mhm.
whether that's very helpful or not. It depends on the person. Many people know whether heart disease
Whoops.
is running in their family or not. And some people do have specific genes that are treatable, though. So, for example, if there's blood clotting disorders that run in the family, then identifying those and considering whether to be proactive about those um, is worthwhile. And so there's a number of conditions that are genetically linked to heart disease and might be worth considering treating, especially genetic cholesterol disorders that are rare but important. The main point of this slide is to acknowledge that, yes, we all have a genetic risk of heart disease. Some people have less genetic risk than others, but there's not much you can do about that. The good news is most of the effect on heart and the arteries comes from things you can control. And I would rather be in that situation than one where you're out of control and it's just your genes.
I'm glad you brought up AFib. We also talk about valvular issues, aortic aneurysms, and even cancer that can cause clotting situations. So just something to be aware of. There's always a reason. There's even LP little a, which Dr. Lily Johnston, again, spoke about during one of our segments today on Next Gen MD. So it's worth just making sure that you get the answers you need. Why are my arteries on fire? Why am I getting plaque buildup, whether it's clot on the one end or rock hard calcium or atherosclerosis on the other end? So summary and conclusions, Dr. Dansinger.
Yeah, most people with peripheral artery disease, cardiovascular disease, history of stroke have a tremendous opportunity to improve several of these issues. Almost nobody's 10 out of 10 perfect. Figure out which ones are an issue for you and see if you can fix those. Because how hot and fierce the fire burns depends on how many issues remain unaddressed. Progress on every issue, even a little, helps put the fire out and lets your arteries gradually heal. So we recommend working with your healthcare team to discuss and protect yourself from each of these 10 sources of damage and any others that are contributing to the burning in your arteries.
And we do have a worksheet where you can try to identify your own causes. You can pick up our Food for Thought book on Amazon. It's only $20. If you want a digital copy, that is free, and you can email info@padhelp.org, and we will go ahead and just let us know that you want a digital copy of Food for Thought. We also have even just chapter 1. We can send you just one PDF of the document, but we can also send you the worksheet where you can identify your own causes and then bring your notes with you to discuss them with your doctor. Now, coming up on the next session, make sure you join us because we're going to talk about what foods might heal your arteries. So email us at info@padhelp.org. We'll also go ahead. We can add you to the calendar when we're going on to session 2, and we're just going to keep moving forward until we finish Food for Thought. But again, you can pick it up on Amazon or you can get a digital copy. So always reach out to us. Make sure you follow us and subscribe to our channel on YouTube, youtube.com/the way to my heart. Also, Michael Dansinger, MD. Make sure to check out his channel and subscribe to his channel as well. If you want more information on the diabetes reversal services that he provides, which are covered by Medicare and Medicare Advantage PPO plans in New York, in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Virginia, Minnesota, and Florida, go to diabetesreversalpartners.com.